All right. All right, Coach Spallina, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time. Jim Furchwin here, and I just want to start off with what has the week been like, especially with these two tremendous wins, 37 points combined between two Power 5 schools. But starting off your season against Syracuse, I want to start off with that.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it is? You got your schedule, and you got your schedule out in front of you, 6 to 8 months ahead of schedule. So you always focus on that front end, and there's so much emphasis put on that season opener. And then for us to have on that season opener to be playing a top 5, number 2 ranked team in the country, Syracuse, just puts a lot of pressure, a lot of emphasis on developing and getting things, right away. So you don't really have time for first game mistakes or first game things when you're playing, the type of schedule that we're playing year in and year out puts a really large emphasis and pressure on the staff to develop players properly during our preseason.
And, Coach, I want to also discuss your video with Us versus Everybody. And I watched it numerous times, and it was very motivational and inspiring to show what you and the team, the camaraderie that you and your program have is absolutely sensational to watch. And when you were preparing for that Syracuse game, probably the biggest game of the season for Stony Brook Women's Lacrosse, did you prepare any differently?
No, that's who we are. That video is who we are. It kind of gives people a sneak peek on what goes on behind the scenes. So, I think the one thing that we do is we really focus on us, and that's why the Us versus Everybody. There's different layers to it, but we always talk about it. And Gally Kennedy was quoted yesterday as saying that a lot of times, most of the time, it's a faceless opponent. We tweak things based on who we're playing. We address the strengths and weaknesses of the teams we're playing, but ultimately we have to be the best version of Stony Brook. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. You can have the best game plan, the best X's and O's set up, but if you don't go out and execute, you don't go out and play your style lacrosse, you're not going to be successful. I think a lot of coaches spend so much time in scouting and fixing their team to fit what the other teams do. That in some cases, or often, I find that people come out of their own identity. So we want people, we have got a hit 'em first mentality. We want to go after people and make them adjust to us, and then we're always prepared to make the proper adjustments at the right times.
Coach Matt Mankiewicz here. I told the guys, Jim and Zach, they aired the game last week, that because Syracuse is an established lacrosse power, particularly for the men, and the Carrier Dome has such history, that they should go because it will be a unique experience for them. You have Syracuse regularly scheduled. You have Hopkins at Homewood Field regularly scheduled. So maybe if your game approach may be exactly as you described, but how much do you want your team to take that experience in? A little bit of tradition to go with the tradition you're trying to set here.
I think that's part of it, right? I mean, these kids all grow up, but this is Long Island, so there's no, lacrosse is life on the island. So it probably, I had my boys with me when we go to Hopkins, my daughter and my family, my wife, in Syracuse. And like you said, I mean, a lot of Syracuse's history is really with its men's program. I mean, their women's program is, in a lot of ways, very similar to where we are, where they're knocking on the door. They've been to the Final Four, which we haven't, but I think we've been running, very similar in the polls the last bunch of years. We have a ton of respect for everything they do there. So, I think it's part of it. Like whether we do that or we're going to be, we go play in some big stadiums or, against some of these, the schools that have these outstanding Power 5 football and basketball programs where their funding is different, but we always feel like we're a power program, so we don't have the revenue that these guys have, but we certainly probably have accomplished more or the same things that most of the teams that are on our schedule have.
Coach Zach Wilson here. So we've seen this team so far in the last week, and I'd like to talk about for a second one of the players that have started to seem like they've started to make a huge impact so far. You got the freshman Kaylin Hart from North Babylon, and 2 of her goals so far this season have been SportsCenter top 10 plays because they have been backhanded goals against Syracuse and Ohio State. She has already seemed to have made such a huge impact. Do you believe that? What do you believe about her? Do you believe that she can be a crucial asset to this team?
That's part of her game. It's part of all of our offensive kids' games. It's something we drill. We instill a confidence and a belief that we encourage those type of creative shots as long as they're taken at the right time. So, she was an under the radar recruit. She, and is somebody who we saw a great deal of potential. A lot of parallels to other players that we've recruited in the past that have flown under the radar. She's actually from the same town as Allie Kennedy, which is not really a lacrosse powerhouse. But she's fantastic. She's learning every day. She's asking questions. We're pushing her to be great, and I think she's going to be a special player. Like I said, when we committed her, and I know a lot of people, may not know a lot of our kids because they're not quote-unquote top 50 recruits in the country coming in, but just like the Kylies and Allies and Dorian Van Dykes and players before them may not come in as a top 50 kid, but they certainly leave as one of the top kids in the country. And we feel that Kaylin is going to be a special one in Stony Brook for her 4 years, which obviously when you're in sports top 10 for your first 2 games of your college career, it's like going fishing for the first time and catching a 50-pound bass and thinking that's fishing. So, she's great. And our lineup is really cool right now. We're starting 8 kids. Against Syracuse, we started 8 players that never started a college lacrosse game for Stony Brook ever. So, while, Syracuse had, I think, 11 of 12 returning starters, so we feel really good. I think the thing that we feel really good about is we're playing a lot of really good teams, and where Syracuse is, and these other, a lot of these other teams, the top 10 teams they have a lot of veteran players, and they're good. They're really good, but they may be as good as they're going to be. Give or take a goal here or a play there. Where I think when we have so many impact freshmen and sophomores, Sarah Poulos is a really good example of a kid who's been injured and now she's finally healthy and she's crushing it. We have so much more room to grow this season, which, if our kids, stick to the plan and keep doing their thing and block the noise and just keep swimming, I think that, our best lacrosse is still ahead of us.
Hey, Coach, Ken Furman here, and I just wanted to really just continue picking up on that point, because this is an excellent point you bring up, that you said you have so many key players, so many role players on this team that you said are under the radar. These aren't 5-star recruits like some of the other schools you face, like a Florida or Syracuse will have. These are a lot of local kids as well as a lot of other star players trying to make a name for themselves. You said Sarah Pulis, Raina Sabella is another example, Jesse Arline, some freshmen like Hart or Verhulst, even Cameron Hassel transferring from Rutgers to Stony Brook. So I just want to know, what do you think it takes to not only succeed in your system that you're producing overall on both ends of the ball, but also what does it take to really maintain that kind of top-ranked national powerhouse mentality throughout all season?
Yeah, it's been really cool, for us to be a mid-major that kind of has a little bit of a secret sauce where people don't understand how our kids are, maybe they're not most highly recruited kids and they turn into something. I think it comes down to a lot of the intangibles. I think our kids are not silver spoon kids that have been told how great they are every day of their careers. I think they're kids that are really eager to get better, kids who have a massive chip on their shoulder. And I could go back, in my time from, Claire Peterson, Demi Cook, who came over with me from Adelphi when people didn't think Division II kids could play Division I lacrosse, and they left as All-Americans, to Kylie O'Miller, who was a kid who was recruited by pretty much us and no one else. Allie Kennedy, under-recruited kid. And I think the biggest thing for it, they just have to love the game, and they got to have an unparalleled, they got to just be willing to do whatever it takes to be great and kind of prove people wrong that they missed them. So it's the best part of my job is watching that. When you watch kids, watch that light bulb go on and watch kids start to do things and come out of the woodwork, and shock pretty much everybody except for us and them, because we're instilling that belief in the time we recruit them that they could be special, and as long as they have that burning desire to be great and kind of showed what they could do. So, and those kids, a lot of those kids you mentioned, Hart, North Babylon, Kennedy, North Babylon, Sarah Poulos, Baldwin, those aren't exactly, I would say, the top high school powerhouses or perennial, schools that are turning these insane players out every year, year after year. So it's a tribute to our kids and what they're made of, believing in our program, and it's pretty, when you take a step back, the fact that we've been in the top 20 for virtually all of my tenure at Stony Brook, minus the first week where people were just kind of trying to figure us out since we beat Johns Hopkins at Hopkins my first year. It's all about our kids, and my assistants have been tremendous in just getting kids to believe that they could do something. And it's no different than I do with my kids at home. It's nothing is given, everything's earned, and you gotta be part of it. Everybody's got to do their part, and once you earn it, you'll get it. And like I tell our kids, our players, it's a lesson they'll carry with them all through their life.
Absolutely, and you said with that, you really got to earn it to win. And Stony Brook has won 2 hard-fought games. They said the one at Syracuse as well as yesterday over Ohio State. Now the team's going to go on about a 13-day break before you travel to Florida to face nationally ranked Florida. So what are these next 13 days really going to consist of? Because I know chatting with some of the players following the game, they're like, it's back to work tomorrow, which was today. So really, what does that entail throughout the next couple of weeks as you guys sort of really practice and prepare for the upcoming season?
It's really exciting, actually, because for me, I always break our season up in segments. So, while we're 2-0, I looked at it as we won that first season as 2-0. Wow. And now we get a chance with a young team. Now they have some game experience to really go back to the strength of our program, and that's the player development and game planning, and just continue to teach and mold these kids now that they have some actual game experience. I think they could probably apply some of the stuff that we preach on a day-in, day-out basis to them. So, I think this week we'll spend on us, and just really fine-tuning things that I felt that were shortcomings through the first couple games. And then, we'll start to, Florida has, they play Loyola this weekend, then they have another game midweek next week. So, for all, there's a good chance that Florida will be, in the top of the top 10, and I think that's where we'll be, and then so it'll be a battle of 2 top 10s, and you look at our next schedule for me, our next block was a 3-game block. We're breaking our schedule down. It's going to be obviously Florida at Florida, and then Towson at home, and then another top 10 team in Princeton. So we have 2 top 10 teams out of our next 3 games, and Towson's a top 20 team. So we have 3 more ranked opponents coming up, and I told our team, I don't hide anything from them. You want to be in the NCAA tournament, you win top 20 games. You want to host NCAA games, you got to win top 10 games. So we're 1-0 in the top 10 games, and we have another one we have 2 weeks to get ready for, and I take great pride in making sure that our players are prepared.
Yeah, so with Florida, as you mentioned right there, they have just come off of a huge upset victory against the Maryland Terrapins, who were ranked number 1 in the country throughout this last week. So with that in mind, you have to acknowledge the fact that Florida is going to be a really tough team this year, and you have gotten at least one. You had 1 win against them so far in your tenure with Stony Brook, and you're trying to get that second win against them. So with Florida's huge win over Maryland, what does that say to you about the adversity that you need to face against the Gators?
Well, I think, Florida's got to worry about us too, right? I mean, so we're really good and they're really good. So, we beat Syracuse, they beat Maryland. Syracuse is a team that's full of returners and experienced players. And Maryland, they did graduate a lot of players last year. So I would not say that result completely shocked me. Florida's always a super, super talented team. We have obviously a ton of respect, a lot of Long Island flavor on their team. Their top scorer and draw control player last game, 8 goals, and I think eight draw controls was a Smithtown kid. So we know her quite well. She did a really good job. I thought she was a difference maker against us last year. So for us, like I said, I think this is one of those colossal games. I think what makes us a little different than probably a lot of other teams is, playing in those big games or against these quote-unquote Power 5 teams. It's not something that really phases our players. It's, we're on a quest to get to the Final Four, and Florida's next in our way. So we want to do these things. We have to walk the walk, and that means going on the road and winning a tough road game. With all due respect to Gainesville, and there's a little bit more mystique and tradition in Syracuse where we just played. So we're going to be, we'll be certainly used to these type of tough atmospheres. And obviously the weather will be a factor, but there'll be familiarity with our players and theirs, though. So there's certainly a lot of kids that know each other on both teams. And we felt they beat us last year by a goal. It's a game that we felt we could have had. So we're really, really excited to have the opportunity to go after those guys.
And Coach, before we let you go, I just want to discuss. This team has 13 freshmen on this squad, and the way that you guys are playing, it feels like everyone's a veteran. But with the way your mentality is saying how, Zach asked you should be worried about Florida, and then you're saying Florida should be worried about us. But the way your mentality is and the way that you approach this team, are there any primary concerns that that you're really targeting right now, or things are just clicking in all cylinders?
Well, I think we just got to keep building, right? I mean, you have young players who there's so much situational stuff and chemistry. I mean, this is by far the most depth we've ever had.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And it's crazy. And honestly, I could say it now, but we've had 3 players with season-ending injuries, 2 from late in the fall and 1 in this preseason that, we didn't skip a beat in our first 2 games. And these are players that will make huge impacts in our program. So, 2 definite starters and 1 that would have seen significant playing time that were not available the first 2 games. So it's next man up mentality. So I think that's something that I'm just excited to get back to work and just continue to teach them. It's a little different when you look at like Kylie O'Miller and those guys senior year. We were a really good team. We were a really good team on day 1.
Best in the nation.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we were going to be that much better as a team as the year, like we were as good probably as we were ever going to be. And minus Taryn O'Miller getting blown her ACL in that UPenn game, it's probably a different song we're talking about, So, but that's sports, right? That's all part of it. This is a team that's different than that team in the sense where, number one, we got obviously a tremendous win to start the season, and then another nice win. This team has got so much room to grow, so we can't waste days. And we got to keep just getting these kids their confidence levels up and their the team chemistry on the offensive end, defensive end. We have so much more room to grow, which should really be scary for a lot of teams because we're off to a nice start.
Okay, Coach, thank you so much for the time and great answers, great questions from Zach and Ken and Matt. Again, once I said, great start to the season so far, outscoring the opposition 37-23, and safe travels to Gainesville.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.